Hey guys, I'm Steve Freeman and welcome back to the Steve Freeman Podcast. Well, we are almost halfway through, and matter of fact, by the end of today's podcast, we will be more than halfway through the 12-step program for musicians. Today, we're actually going to cover 3 steps in one day. The reason we're going to do that is because I feel like they kind of all run together, and these 3 steps are almost important to put together because they're so closely related. So I wanted to put all 3 of them together. Today's steps are step 5, which is integrity, step 6, which is willingness, and step 7, which is humility. Let's start with step 5. I think a lot of people I've seen over the years struggle with integrity. I've struggled with integrity at times. That can mean many different things. Integrity can be doing the right thing even when you know that it's the hardest thing to do, or when maybe the wrong way is easier, the road less traveled, and taking that road is a lot harder sometimes than doing the easy thing. That can be integrity. It's kind of funny. We're in the music business, and it's one of those things where not everybody goes around and you hear all the time, oh, well, that artist has a lot of integrity. It's just not something that gets brought up very often. I will say that I think probably the music business could use a huge shot of integrity. Matter of fact, the music business could use a big shot of all 3 of today's steps. But let's talk about integrity. Maybe one of the things, and I've got several things that I want to talk about under each one of these steps today, but I'm going to move through them as fast as humanly possible. Let's talk about integrity. Maybe one of the things that you can do in your journey, in your process, in your evolution through these 12 steps, is to change the way that you do business. And we've talked in past episodes and podcasts about the danger and detriment of doing the same thing over and over and over again while expecting a different outcome or result is the definition of insanity. But maybe having integrity means changing the way that you do business. It can also mean the way that you could change the way that you represent yourself and or your music. Maybe the way that you're putting your music out to the world, or the way that you're representing yourself as an artist out to the rest of the world, maybe it's not necessarily that it's not full of or doesn't have integrity. Maybe it's not being perceived that way. We've talked in the past how important perception is. So we want to make sure that we have integrity with every effort that we make, in everything that we do, that we keep the highest standards. And we also expect integrity and expect the highest standards from everyone around us. Sometimes that means doing the right thing, even when the wrong thing looks more attractive, is easier, and may get us to our destination faster. Not doing that is the exact definition of having integrity. And having integrity is not always easy. Matter of fact, it's very hard, because one of the things it requires us to do is evaluate our surroundings and force ourselves at times, even though we think we have these friends or relationships in the business, that we evaluate those that we're associating with and that are surrounding us to make sure that they are also upholding the same standard of integrity that we're trying to put forward. I've said this to a lot of different artists that I've worked with over the years. You are guilty by association. You may be completely different from this certain group of songwriters that you're writing with, or certain artists that you are kind of in a group with, or in a community with. But if there's something wrong with the perception value of the overall group, you are guilty by association. Even though you may be completely different, you are guilty by association. And when it comes to integrity, I think it's so important that it's almost an individualistic character, that each person has their own level of integrity. They have the things that they're willing to do, the things that they're not willing to do. And I think because you are guilty by association, that maybe sometimes it's okay to just not associate. and be able to stand on your own, and for people to be able to look at you, look at your career, look at your surroundings, look at your effort and what it is that you're doing, and say that person actually has integrity. I've said it many times before, but there will never be a better representative of you than you. You are the gold standard. You are what people are going to judge you by. So the more integrity you have and the more willingness that you have to do the right thing over the easy thing, I think people are going to be drawn to that. People are drawn to people with integrity, especially in the business world. People want to do business with other people who have integrity and have a track record of showing that they're more willing to do the right thing than they are to take the easy way out or take the shortcut. Integrity is so important. I think it's something that's lost a lot of time in the music business. I don't think a lot of artists sit around and think about, well, how can I show more integrity? Or songwriters, producers, engineers, how can I show more integrity? Let me give you a couple examples. And it's hard to do. I'm not saying at all that this is easy, because it's not. But sometimes in our process, say no. There is so much power in the word no. Everybody loves to hear yes. Everybody wants to get to the next place of where they're going and where they feel like they want to be. But sometimes, listen very closely to this, because I don't think you guys hear this often enough. Sometimes it is the things that you will say no to that will actually mean the most in the end. Sometimes saying no can take you further than saying yes. I recently had an opportunity to work with an artist, and sure, I could have said yes. I could have taken the money. It was a lot of money. I could have said yes. I could have done what it is that I always do. But deep down in my core, I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And if I'm being truthful, I didn't really believe in this artist. It would have just been doing it to do the work. I didn't really feel like this artist was going anywhere in particular. And I also didn't feel, because of that, I didn't feel like there was anything that I could bring to the table that was going to get past the fact that this is just another artist, another singer with another song. So I actually said no. And I've done that a lot over my career. I've made a practice sometimes of saying no, but then you also get into a habit where sometimes you get into a yes role and a yes consistency, and you just say yes to everything, because we all like to be busy. We all like to feel valued. We all like to feel like we're a part of the process. So it is possible sometimes to get stuck in a yes continuum. But this time I said no. And it goes against my business model. It goes against my business to say no. But I said no. And I'm not, like beating my own chest or anything, but it leads to exactly what I'm talking about with integrity, in that I feel better about myself for having said no. I feel like that maybe I have upped my integrity value just a little bit by saying no. Now, here's how this could work on the flip side. I don't know. I've had artists tell me this before in the past, but I don't know if this particular situation is one. But I've had situations before where I've had clients come to me and say, we want to work with you specifically because we heard that another artist came to you and you would not work with them or turn the project down. We also feel like somebody that would work with that artist is just looking to make money and is just operating a business, and that's not what we're looking for. So like I said, sometimes saying no can take you more places, open more doors, and bring you more opportunity than saying yes. And the reason is because you will start to see that other people can see that you actually have integrity. And like I said before, the music business definitely needs more people with integrity. We have an overwhelming number of people in this business with a lack of it. So the more people we can start to have in our business that show actual willingness to say no, willingness to take the road less traveled when there's a shortcut or an easier route, we need more integrity. And I'm hoping that you guys listening, watching, I hope that you're one of the ones that chooses to take a step towards integrity. Step 6 is willingness. And I think this is really important. I think we've talked about admission, we've talked about hope, we've talked about faith and courage and integrity, but none of it means shit unless you have the willingness to change the things in your life and the things in your career that you're doing wrong. You have to have a willingness to admit. You have to have a willingness to have faith, a willingness to hope, a willingness to show courage, and the willingness to want to have integrity and show integrity in everything that you do. Are you willing? I got to be honest with you. A lot of times when I've worked with artists over the years, I'm on record saying this, so I'm not making up something new. I tell artists and songwriters all the time, there are two things in the world of artist development. There are two things that I see that cause more artists to fail than anything else. You might think you're thinking it's lack of money. Well, I mean, that is sometimes it, but it's not it all the time. The number one and number two reason that I see most songwriters and artists and producers fail is because of availability and willingness. That's the two things. They either can't make themselves available to do what they have to do in order to make it further down the road, or they're not willing to make sacrifices. They're not willing to make the right choices they need to make. They're not willing to change their surroundings to put them in a more success-driven direction. They're not willing sometimes to take a step back and evaluate. We are all the time talking about moving forward. And yes, moving forward is great. We don't want to get stuck on the music business treadmill. We don't want to get stuck on the treadmill of life. So moving forward is important. But sometimes you have to be willing to take a step back and survey the area. Look where you're going. Look at your surroundings. Make the hard decisions. Take the time and actually stop. Take a step back and look around. Make sure that the direction that you're heading is the direction, number one, that you want to go in. I can't tell you the number of times, and this is on me personally, that I have involved myself with things, gotten involved with artists or gotten involved with projects or side businesses or other things that I moved full steam ahead. And when I finally had the willingness to stop and step back, I was willing to, and able to admit to myself, I don't really want to be doing this. I mean, it's happened recently. But if you're not willing to stop and take a step back and evaluate what it is that you're doing and where it is that you're going and why in the hell are you doing it in the first place, if you're not willing to take that step back to do that, it's going to be hard to have and cover any of these steps, whether it's admit, whether it's hope, faith, courage, integrity. If you're not willing and you don't have the willingness to execute, to sacrifice, to take a step back, to take a look at your surroundings, if you aren't willing, see, that's the one thing. Nobody can be willing for you. Nobody can will anything into existence. I don't believe in any of that bullshit. We can talk about all these people out here putting up dream walls and dream posters and willing all. No, I think we do that. You might think you willed something into being. Every person you can tell me, show me, or talk to me about that willed something into being, I will show you the hard work that actually made it happen. But we have to be willing in order for that to happen. So maybe willingness is one of the most important steps, because none of it matters unless we take all of this into ourselves and we take it inside and we find it and make it important enough to us to have the willingness to make the right decisions, make the changes, make the sacrifices. Willingness. You have to be willing. Step number 7 is probably the hardest one to come by, in all honesty, and that is humility. We do not operate within the boundaries of a business where humility is often rewarded. You've heard me say this before if you've been following the podcast or watching my videos very long at all. This is a very me business. It's not a we business. It's not a team sport, although it takes a village. But see, most people aren't humble enough or have the humility to even admit that. I mean, no more so than watch award shows lately. Everybody's going to get up there and thank God. That's how, you've got to do that, I guess. I think it's on the sheet when you win. It's like, okay, step 1, thank God, thank this person. Those people, and I know they're short on time. They don't have a lot of time. But it took hundreds of people to get those people where they are. Hundreds of people to get them on that stage to accept an award. And they think 2 or 3 people. This is just not a business where a lot of people have the humility to put others to the forefront. We have a tendency to want that sunshine to shine directly on us, and we don't want to share the spotlight or share that warmth with anyone. I think that's born and bred from competitiveness. I think we are scared to lift other people up because we're afraid if we lift others up, we might just lift them a little bit above ourselves. And guys, that's what humility is all about. I mean, humility can be how you interact with other people. Do you constantly have to be the one in the room? Are you willing to let somebody else drive? Sometimes humility too, I think in the context of what we're talking about, one of the most important elements of humility, I think, is realizing and having the humbleness and humility within yourselves to admit to ourselves that we don't always have our shit together. We're not always that perfect person. We don't always have it together. We don't always have the best plan. We don't always have the best people around us. We don't always have it together. And maybe we're not supposed to. That's one of the things that this last year that I've been trying to do a better job of is realizing that I could do better in a lot of different things. That my shit does stink, and it's up to me to not make it that way. But I have to have the humility to be able to again, humility and willingness. That's what I'm saying. That's why we're doing all 3 of these together. They all go together. You have to have the humility to have the willingness, right? You have to have the humility to have the willingness, to have the integrity to go, you know what? I'm not half as special as I try to make people think that I am. I'm just me, and I'm on my journey. But that's not a popular way of thinking. We're thought and we're told that we have to be on all the time. We've got to be moving forward. We've got to be showing people that we're special, that we're better than everybody else. You look around on social media, and see how much humility you see on social media. It's like we've looked at life and we've made it a competition. We don't enjoy anymore. I've talked in the past about the importance of enjoying small victories and little victories. And we don't really do that anymore. And that's kind of sad. I think, and I'm almost positive it's because we don't have the humility that we once had. And that's a sad thing. I think if we could ever get to the point, and this is the point I want to leave you with on humility. Number 1, people can sense and will support authenticity. The more humility you have, the more authentic you're going to be, which means the more authentic you're going to be perceived. And people want to support authenticity. Maybe change your direction a bit and try approaching other people as you actually are and not who you want them to think you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to be this certain person or have reached this certain level for people to care. The people that attracts, I can promise you don't want in your life anyway. You want people that are there for you, that are passionate about you, that believe in you, not this facade that you're letting walk in every room 30 steps ahead of the actual you. Let people see who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, and allow them to take that trip and that journey along with you. Because I promise you, the more authentic you can be, the more you're going to draw people to you. So guys, if you really just take away one thing from this episode, I hope it's this. Take the next 30 days and try to show a little bit more integrity. I'm not saying that you don't have any. I'm just saying make a conscious effort to show more. Be willing and have the humility. Take the next week even and forget perception and approach people as you are, not who you want them to think you are. See what kind of people that attracts to you, because I promise, I think if you do it, you'll see that you're starting to have a much better circle around you, a circle of people that believe in you, are passionate about you, and that their friendship or their relationship with you is not based on who you want to be, but it's based on who you actually are. And when you can start there as a foundation and have that as a base, I can promise you, you're heading in the right direction, and these steps are starting to work for you. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Steve Freeman podcast. We've made it through step 7. Today, 5, 6, and 7, integrity, willingness, and humility. By the end of this week, we are going to wrap up the 12-step program for musicians, and we'll be moving on, but also starting a new season, season 4 of the Steve Freeman podcast. Guys, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or any of the other audio formats, please subscribe so every episode is automatically downloaded to your playlist. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to connect with me personally, visit my website, thestevefreeman.com. As always, guys, keep being creative. Keep pushing the boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with being independent. See you in the next one.